Spoilers for all Evangelion. If you haven't watched any Evangelion, like anything, then go watch it, bro. Like, what the fuck are you doing here, you fucking pleb? Tsunderes. I absolutely love tsundere characters. And no, it's not a joke. I love tsundere girls every time they say, I love tsundere girls when they blush and say, I'll never get tired of that shit, bro. I love tsundere girls so much that it physically hurts. But of course, I'm okay with that. I love tsundere so much that I would go so far as to say it's the only good dere type in all of anime. So today, I want to talk about the new Evangelion short film featuring one of the greatest tsundere in all fiction. The one and only Asuka. Aside from the initial controversy with Kara gatekeeping the short, I was very excited for it. To think that my favorite anime of all time is getting a new material starring Best Girl herself. Hell, I was so excited that I didn't even care if I had to watch it through a shitty cam rip. Although I have not been the biggest fan of the rebuild films, I welcome this short film with open arms. The main reason being it stars Asuka Langley Soryu, and not Shikinami, though she's still in the film itself. I feel like Soryu is the perfect choice for the protagonist because this version of Asuka deserves the most closure of anybody in the original cast. Due to the leaks that came out before Kara released it on their YouTube channel, everyone was already jumping the gun on what it would be about. Asuka and Shinji are finally together! We won, Asuka bros! Look, they're happily married with kids! Suck it, Ray fans! Are basically the impression a lot of people had towards the leaks. Okay, maybe not that last one. As a fellow Asushin shipper myself, I understand why everyone rushed to that conclusion. After all this time, our 30-year-long ship has finally set sail. A long overdue victory for those who could only dream of such a happy ending in the form of a fanfic-like retake. Nonetheless, after watching the actual short film, I realized my assumption was correct. There's no way Anno came back just to do a run-of-the-mill happily ever after epilogue. What we did end up getting was somehow even better. Mind you, it wasn't a convoluted mess where characters go through another existential crisis for the millionth time. On the other hand, it wasn't pure shipping fanservice slop either. What we got was hilarious, introspective, bittersweet, and incredibly heartfelt. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just jump right into it. This short film is about how the original Asuka, Soryu, is dissatisfied with how her character has been treated throughout the franchise. She laments how both she and Shikinami have suffered so much that it's only right for her to get a happy ending she so desperately deserves. To achieve this, Shikinami suggests Soryu use what's called the Shinji Ikari method. Basically, she has to go to sleep and wake up in different alternate realities until she finds the one that she's satisfied with. Going through all these what-if scenarios, Asuka never finds the one she's completely satisfied with. Some worlds range from being too comical, or just outright too embarrassing for Asuka to accept. It's not until the last world where Asuka is offered a normal life by an alternate version of Shinji. In this world, she lives a completely normal life without angels or Evas whatsoever. She also ends up married to Shinji and starts a family with him, which sounds like the most perfect world Asuka could ever ask for. Nevertheless, Asuka rejects the offer and claims that she will create her own happiness in her own world without escaping to another one. What I appreciate about this short is that it acknowledges some of the contentions behind Asuka's character, both in the rebuilds and in the original, in that she's never gotten the resolution she deserves. In End of Eva, she's able to come to terms with her emotional trauma and resolve the internal conflict with her mother, However, that triumphant moment is short-lived because of the infamous scene where she gets brutally murdered by the mass-produced Evas. Meanwhile, the Shikinami version barely gets a moment to rest. First, she's seemingly killed by Shinji after her Eva goes berserk, then she returns from the dead, but now a hybrid angel who can no longer age physically, and also a pirate. The only version of Asuka that gets a proper happy ending is the manga version. Therefore, it's quite wholesome for this anniversary celebration to focus on, arguably, the heart of the franchise who's always been mistreated for the sake of the narrative. Despite how the story is supposed to be about Soryu looking for the happiest ending possible, the conclusion she arrives at is even greater than what the leaks promised. As mentioned before, the leaks that came out were screenshots of Asuka and Shinji happily married together with kids. At first, I too was happy. I have always hopelessly prayed for the relationship to happen because of how much I love Asuka and relate to Shinji. I cannot deny that a part of me yearns for the wish fulfillment fantasy that the toxic relationship between the two will eventually turn out alright. I'm a sucker for Tsundere romance after all, so seeing the leaked screenshots gave me hope that perhaps Anno has made that wish come true. Once again, in typical Eva fashion, the film defies all of our preconceptions. Turns out everyone just jumped the gun based on the screenshots out of context. All of these screenshots showing Asuka and Shinji dating and starting a family together are mere fabrications. In other words, an alternate reality Asuka could have chosen as her ideal one. In the actual story, Asuka does acknowledge that this reality is deep down what she wishes for. Regardless, she realizes that she wants to acquire this happiness through her own effort. This scene with Asuka making a choice ties back to the recurring motive of Evangelion whenever it needs to communicate its central theme. Similarly, Shinji also has had to either choose a world without pain where individuality ceases to exist, or try to achieve happiness again from something real. In Soryu's case, she's given a choice to live in a world without danger from the angels, responsibility as an Eva pilot, and the emotional baggage from her childhood. A perfect world in which she no longer has to suffer in more ways than any ordinary girl should. In spite of all of that, Soryu knows this perfect world is not where she's supposed to be. In the end, Soryu rejects this perfect world in order to find happiness in her own reality. She understands that happiness handed to her on a silver platter isn't the kind of happiness she wants. She knows the kind of happiness she should strive for is something much more tangible. I get why some people wrongly assume this short was going to be the epilogue they have always wanted. It's a given that a Tsundere heroine promises certain expectations. Since Asuka is outwardly mean to Shinji right now, they will sort out their differences and fall in love with each other in the future, is what the audience would believe in the beginning. The synchronized battle, their constant bickering, Asuka teaching Shinji about thermodynamics, and countless other examples all point to one possible outcome. And yet, the trajectory of their relationship goes in the worst direction possible. Not only is their questionable friendship ruined right after this kiss scene, but the events of End of Eva have done almost irreversible damage to their relationship as a whole. So I understand all too well why people were so quick to assume that their favorite ship is now canon. That in spite of all of the emotional trauma inflicted upon one another, Asuka and Shinji will find a way to be together, happily ever after. No matter how much you and I wish for that fantasy, it's never going to be that easy. Evangelion is a series that has never failed to defy our expectations. This may not be the ending we all secretly hope for, but it is the ending we all know our beloved Asuka deserves. To clarify, I don't think the takeaway is that Shinji and Asuka won't ever end up together and they should go their separate ways. I mean, If we believe the common reading of Thrice Upon a Time, Asuka moves on to live with Kensuke in her own world, and Shinji moves forward to the future with Mari by his side. Even then, that was Shikinami and not Soryu. If we listen again to what Asuka said at the end of this short film, I'll find a way to make my own happiness in the real world. Then we know that she intends to achieve the same kind of happiness she saw in the future visions. In conclusion, Asuka doesn't reject the perfect world because she ends up with Shinji. Rather, she wants to create happiness even in a world filled with so much pain and suffering. Because to her, depending on a fantasy to get what she wants isn't how Asuka Langley Soryu does things. In this very speech, Soryu has declared that she's no longer a victim of Evangelion's narrative. Now, she has taken control of her own destiny, ready to fight for the happiness of herself and those she loves. She doesn't need Shinji to save her in order to find happiness. We all know she has her own agency, her own path, and her own character. Since her introduction, Asuka's brash, cocky attitude was a facade made to compensate for her insecurities and abandonment issues. Now, she has developed a real sense of confidence through self-actualization and a newfound purpose. Asuka no longer fights for self-validation because she now understands what she should really be fighting for. Strangely enough, this short film about Asuka better conveys the central theme of the franchise than the ending of Thrice Upon a Time. In the last few minutes of 3.0 plus 1.0, Shinji fixes the world by creating a new one where Evas no longer exists. You could say he rebuilds the world into one where all the threat of the angels or the many impacts no longer exists. Then it cuts to Shinji, now an adult, ready to take on whatever's ahead and take off along with Mari to his new reality without Evangelion. This ending works on a metatextual level because, yes, it's literally telling the audience that they don't need to depend on Evangelion to be happy. You can move on from using Evangelion the series as escapism from the real world. The issue is that this reading only works if you perceive it from a meta perspective. The actual in-world story conveys the exact opposite. At the end, Rebuild Shinji basically just creates the perfect world without all the baggage from the previous one. In other words, it's another form of escapism and running away from responsibilities. This is why the Rebuild movies fall short for me. It attempts to communicate the same message, allegedly, in a clearer manner. But when the actual in-world story doesn't reinforce the same message, the entire thesis of your story suffers. Unlike Rebuild Shinji, Soryu Asuka realizes that she doesn't need to run away to another world, nor does she need to build a new one in order to find happiness. Eva is a story that repeats. It is a story where the main character witnesses many horrors with his own eyes, but still tries to stand up again. It is a story of will, a story of moving forward, if only just a little. It is a story of fear, where someone who must face indefinite solitude fears reaching out to others, but still wants to try. If you try to face your problems by just rewriting the world without all its flaws, then you're not really facing your problems. It's no longer a story where the main character witnesses many horrors with his own eyes, but still tries to stand up again. Now, it's a story where you can rewrite your own reality in any way you see fit until it no longer resembles your reality. And that's not what the story of Evangelion should be about. Thus, Soryu's decision at the end feels like a return to form of what Evangelion is really all about. I sometimes wonder if I love Asuka because she is the Tsundere of all anime. But this short film reminds me that No. I love Asuka because she is the tsundere that surpasses her archetype. The resolution to her character arc isn't to simply put down her walls and accept Shinji into her heart. More than a love interest of Evangelion, she is the hero that wasn't able to live out her full potential in the original series. Almost like a shonen protagonist stuck in a series where she isn't the main character. But now, this short film has given her that chance. The chance to prove to everyone that she's more than just an option in a dating sim. That she can be the protagonist, and that she has her own story to tell. That she deserves a proper ending to her character as much as Shinji does. Because she is the pilot of Evangelion Unit 2, the best Eva pilot out there, the best character, and irrefutably the best girl of the franchise. Asuka Langley Soryu. TLDR, the Tsundere is not dead. Fuck you, Lextorius. Go watch Kanan-sama wa Akumade Chodoi. Bye!
人は愛を紡ぎながら歴史を作る女神なんてなれないまま私は生きる三国の天地の帝政窓辺からやがて飛びやすほとばしるアスイパトスで思い出を奪いうならこの空を抱いて輝く少年よ神話になれ Yeah. 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 Asuka's still best girl.